Hello, chapter 11 of the Odyssey. Here we go. I did just realize that as I was overcome with emotion reading chapter 10 in the moment when Odysseus and Telemachus finally see each other. Remember, Telemachus has never seen his dad, and Odysseus has been away from his home for 20 years. So that moment of homecoming is so powerful. So I get all choked up, and I forgot to show you the picture. All right, so here is this. They're inside of Eumaeus's little hut there. It's Telemachus, right? This is Father Odysseus, who no longer looks like a beggar, looks like a shining, handsome god because of Athena's help and blessings. And there's our wily, sly Athena smiling up in the corner, watching them reunite, which is really a product of her work, right? Her love of Odysseus and her ability to help him and protect him. So I love that moment. So that was chapter 10. We're going to read chapter 11 today. Again, on the timeline, right? Our characters have synced up. Okay, so we're over here now. Right? This says, right, plans are laid, right? And then we're getting into the contest. So we're toward the end. There's the whole timeline. Okay, we learned about all of this, right? The wanderings and the time on Calypso's Island. We learned about that in flashback. And we're really here at the end in the same place where we were at the very beginning of the story, right? We've all returned now to Ithaca, Odysseus's home, and he and Telemachus are laying plans to take us through to the end of the tale. Okay? Things we're paying attention to. Archetypal hero traits, right? How is Odysseus proving that he is an archetypal hero? Character change, right? How is Odysseus growing, changing, and evolving, right? How has he changed since the beginning of our story? What did he learn over the course of his journey? And really, you're probably noticing a lot of character change in Telemachus too, right? Telemachus has grown in just this very short period of time from when he first met Athena, who was disguised as mentor, to here toward the end now, after his journey and learning what he learned about his dad from Menelaus and Nestor and developing that friendship with Pisistratus. And then finally, what cultural values, right? How are we seeing the cultural values of the Greeks evidenced in both the behavior of Odysseus and all the other characters? You know, notice who the bad guys are and what they do, right? How are they obeying or not obeying this important concept? Someday I'll get this camera angle thing right. But how are they obeying that concept? How are they not? How are they breaking that cultural value? Okay, so noticing who the good guys are and who the bad guys are and what they do and what they don't do, that helps us understand what the Greeks thought was important, what the Greeks valued in their culture during this time period, right? And in many ways, even still today. Okay, so those are the three things we're paying attention to here in chapter 11 of the Odyssey, titled The Beggar in the Hall. When young Dawn with her rose-red fingers shone once more, Telemachus put on his sandals. He picked up his spear. "I'm off to see my mother," he told Eumaeus. "She won't stop crying until she sees me. As for you, take this stranger into town so he can beg a meal. I can't put up everyone who comes by. I have my own troubles." "As you wish, my friend," sly Odysseus said. "Just let me wait until the day warms up. The cold morning could hurt these old bones." Telemachus walked quickly into town. He went into his well-built palace. Penelope came downstairs. She threw her arms around her son and kissed him. "You're home, Telemachus!" The words flew from her heart. "I never thought I'd see you again. Quick, tell me, is there any news of your dear father?" Telemachus kept his promise to his father. He told his mother only what he had heard in Sparta. Odysseus was alive, but a prisoner on Calypso's island. "Now," said the prince, "go up to your room with your serving women. Bathe and put on fresh clothes. Pray to the gods. Promise them a fine offering if Zeus should let us have revenge." As they spoke, the suitors were playing games in front of the palace. Meanwhile, the loyal swineherd and his guest were making their slow way into town. By the time they reached the palace, the suitors had trooped inside for dinner. "What a noble house," the king said. It must be Odysseus's house. See how each building is connected to the next. The courtyard walls are topped with fine tiles. Those doors, oh, how strong they are. No army could break them down. I hear the sounds of feasting. I can smell roast meat. Oh, what a hunger there is in my belly." As he spoke, a dog lying nearby lifted its head and thumped its tail. It was Argos, trained by Odysseus as a puppy. He was old and weak, but he knew his master. The swineherd went into the palace. The first to notice him was Telemachus. The prince nodded and waved him in. Eumaeus picked up a stool and sat beside the prince. Behind him came Odysseus into his own house. Anyone who looked at him saw an old, broken, ragged beggar. He sat down just inside the door. Telemachus prepared a plate of food. He told Eumaeus to give it to the stranger. "Tell him to beg it from the suitors," said the prince. "Shyness is no friend of a man in need." The suitors pitied the old beggar. They gave him scraps. Then he came to Antinous. "Prince, swineherd, why did you drag this in here?" he said. "Aren't there enough beggars in here to eat your master's food?" "Antinous, that was a low thing to say," Eumaeus said. "I wouldn't ask a stranger in unless he had some skill to serve the house. Who would invite a beggar in to bleed the master white?" Irony. Don't waste any breath on Antinous," said Telemachus. "That's just the way he is." He turned on Antinous. "What kind of advice is that? Drive a stranger from my door? Nothing we give this beggar will upset my mother. Not that you'd notice. You're too busy feasting." "So high and mighty, Telemachus," Antinous snarled. "I'll give him something all right." Odysseus stood before Antinous. "Pity, sir," he said. You look like a king. You should give me the biggest piece. You eat off another man's table. Why can't you spare me a scrap?" "Here's what I'll spare you." Antinous threw a stool and hit Odysseus in the back. The other suitors were upset. "That was a crime, Antinous, to strike a poor beggar," more than one of them said. But Antinous paid them no attention. Telemachus said nothing, but his mind was full of bloody thoughts. Odysseus just shook his head. He went back and sat by the door. Up in her room, Penelope heard how Antinous had hit the stranger. "May Apollo the archer hit him just as hard," she cried. "They are all hateful, evil men. But Antinous is the worst of all. Let death come down on every one of these suitors." While Odysseus ate his supper, Penelope called Eumaeus to her. "Send the stranger to me," she said. "I'd like to give him a warm welcome. Maybe he's heard news about my husband." "Truly, he says he has," answered the loyal swineherd. "I'm sure he'll tell you face to face." Eumaeus brought the queen's message to his guest. "I'll gladly tell your wise queen the truth," Odysseus said, "but I'm afraid of what these suitors might do. There seems to be no one here on my side. Tell the queen to wait until dark. Then I'll tell her privately all I know about Odysseus." Eumaeus went back to Penelope. She agreed that the stranger was wise to wait. The swineherd returned to Telemachus in the hall. "I must go back to the farm," he said. "I have work to do. You must look after things here, especially your own skin." "I will look after things," said the prince. "Come back tomorrow, and you'll see." A beggar from the town was lounging at the palace. He was a huge man called Iris. At a signal from the suitors, he picked a fight with the stranger. "Get out, old man, before I pull you out by the leg!" he snarled at Odysseus. "What have I done to you?" Odysseus said. "What have I said? This doorway is big enough for us both." Iris kept on abusing him. Antinous, laughing, called to the other suitors. "Ha ha, a fight! That would be fun. Let's match them up. The winner will be the only man allowed to beg here." Odysseus tried to talk his way out of it. The suitors pushed him forward. Then Athena did her work. Suddenly, the beggar looked like a boxer. "Huh! Look at the build on that old man," the suitors cried. Iris saw it too, and he was scared now. He tried to back away, but Antinous stopped him. "You fat ox. You're better off dead if you're afraid of him." The suitors pushed Iris forward. Both men put up their fists. Iris threw the first punch at Odysseus' shoulder. Odysseus hooked him under the ear, smashing his neck. Down went Iris. Odysseus picked him up by the leg and threw him out into the street. The suitors crowded around Odysseus, laughing and giving him food. Then Athena inspired Penelope to go among the suitors. The goddess made her more beautiful than ever as she came down the stairs. The suitors' knees went weak. Her first words were to her son. "Telemachus, where is your sense?" she said. "How could you let a stranger be abused in our house? Shame on you." "Mother, you're right," said Telemachus. "But how can I do the right thing with these suitors everywhere? If only the gods would beat them the way Iris was beaten." Eurymachus stepped over to them. "Penelope, my wise and lovely queen, no woman can match your beauty or your good sense." "You're wrong," Penelope said bitterly. "The gods destroyed everything I was. They did it the day the Greeks sailed away to Troy. Zeus has torn away my joy. Look at me. It used to be that when men courted a woman, they brought her gifts. They didn't eat up what was hers." Odysseus glowed with joy to hear Penelope say this. Antinous took her at her word. At once he sent a servant to bring a fine present for her, and the other suitors did too. Night came. The suitors grew tired of insulting the stranger. At Telemachus's urging, they went off to bed. Odysseus and his son were alone in the hall. Night has fallen. What did Odysseus tell Eumaeus? Odysseus, the stranger, the beggar, what did he say he was going to do once night fell? Who's he going to talk to? Next chapter. The Queen's guest. It's Penelope. It's Odysseus. It's exciting. Stay tuned for chapter 12. I'll be back.